WRRadio.com.
Dr. Paul is exactly the kind of president we need.
Although the president's the commander-in-chief, he doesn't declare war.
Under the Constitution, only the House of Representatives can declare war.
We've never declared a war since World War II. And we've never won a war since World War II.
I was drafted. I was sent to South Vietnam. The Americans were involved right in the middle of the Civil War, very similar to where we are in Iran. There was no peace until we were defeated and there was no army.
We preemptively, aggressively invaded a sovereign foreign state.
Our military is supposed to be defensive.
But not all for defense. Some of it's for offense. Some of it's for things that end up making us hated throughout the world.
We have embarked on things never intended by the founding fathers. They said, don't get involved in the internal affairs of our nation. Don't become the policeman of the world.
We should keep ourselves free and unfettered from these entangling alliances in which we become the unwitting servant of other countries and other kings.
This is Ron Paul Revolution Radio.
He's the driver that feeling train, so come on board. Well, she may have gone.
Dr. Paul is driving the Freedom Train, and you revolutionaries are getting aboard. And here in the dining car, it's a huge dining car, it's a dining hall. Dr. DrSteveParent is holding a seminar about how to get delegates and how to control the floor. So, Dr. Steve, go right ahead. Sorry, I hit the bridge when it was refreshing, and so now I got to say go ahead again.
There we go. Am I there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What I want people to understand is that your chairman is not the deciding factor, okay, of how your meeting is run. Your chairman is basically like the judge sitting on the bench trying a case. He is there to make sure that the rules are followed. And if any of you have ever watched, court hearings, the judge will let something go by unless the opposing attorney makes an objection. And then the judge will rule on that objection based on the point of order that objection is put forth to them. Okay, so this is what your chairman does. Your chairman is there to make sure that things don't get out of control and that the rules are followed the way that they should be to keep what is called the point of order in your meeting. Now, with that said, even if the chair makes a decision, okay, and you know that they're hostile to you and they're just trying to run over you, as long as you have the majority of the vote there, you can literally appeal every decision that the chair has made. Okay, and the way that you do that is you need to rise and you need to call for a point of order, and your chairman will then address you again and say, what is your point of order? And your statement would be, I appeal from the decision of the chair. Now, what that does is you're going to put this to a vote, okay, and see if the decision of the chair is either going to stand or is going to be what is called sustained, which would be reversed. So the fact is you do this, you must have a second, and then you need the majority of the vote. Now, see, here's where the difference is between 50% plus one and just the majority. If it is a deadlock tie at 50-50, the decision of the chair is reversed. You do not need 50% plus one. That's extremely important to know because sometimes one vote can make the difference. So again, your chairman is not immune to being out of order or being overturned. You just need to know how to do it and how to be effective when you do it. All right, the next thing we're going to get into is the actual resolutions that you're going to try to pass. And I know that we've had some great successes with this, Indy, in some areas. And, of course, we've had some failures in some others. Now, I'm going to urge this of everyone. We need to get more organized in our states that have coming up conventions. Okay, if you're part of a meetup group from the state of New Mexico, since they haven't had even a primary yet, okay, you need to get with every meetup group in that state and share your resolutions with them. Because here's what happens. If you have the majority, okay, and you have a group that knows they're the majority, let them put the resolution forward. So you can actually kind of sit there and lay back and hopefully become a delegate rather than trying to force something through that's probably going to fail anyway. You know, all we need is one county or one district to get this resolution through, typically for it to go to the state level. Now, of course, the more you get through at your county levels and your district levels, the better off you are. But if you're not the majority, let the people in the majority deal with those motions. So that's why it's important to share everything you have with each other so you have a strategy when you go in that can be a winning strategy. You know, listen, you're not going to win every one of these battles. I mean, some battles are won, some battles are lost. The key is to put up the fight to the end and then see who comes out on top. So we really need to get organized here, Indy, and I'm going to urge that, you know, because I've noticed that some counties passed resolutions that others didn't, and they didn't even know about them. We should be sharing this information.
Absolutely, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I'll keep going. All right. Now, when you're actually passing resolutions or amendments, make sure that they do not try to put a whole bunch of resolutions in one spot and let them all be passed at the same time. You should always, if they try to do this, you should try to divide the motion. Okay? And that statement, when you want that done, and again, let me explain what that is, because I know that's kind of confusing, Indy. If you think about some of the legislation that is passed in Congress, let's just say No Child Left Behind. But when you actually look at the legislation and the way that it is written, there's a whole bunch of other things in there that don't even pertain to No Child Left Behind. And you want to get that stuff out of there to make sure that they don't pass things through that you really do not approve of. So this is how you divide the question. You would stand up and say, I move to divide the question. Now what that means is those motions are going to have to be read individually. Okay, but this does need to be put to a vote. You need a second, and you need to have the majority, and then all of your resolutions must be divided and read separately, so they must pass on an individual basis instead of in one big bundle. Did I make that too confusing, Indy?
No, that's perfectly clear to me, Steve.
Okay, good. The second thing that you need to take a look at is you can divide each resolution and proposition, okay, that's in any resolution that's passing. You can basically amend any paragraph that's in there in the same manner. Okay, and again, you will need a second, and you will need the majority to have that done. But you may have a resolution that somebody else has passed that isn't yours, but you say, hey, I agree with that, but I don't agree with these paragraphs and what it's referring to. So you want to move to try and remove those paragraphs. Excuse me, Indy, I'm sorry about that if I coughed in everybody's ear.
No problem.
And the way to do this is you rise and say, I call to consideration to the preceding paragraph. And that will be, again, be put to, the chairman will address the floor, you'll need a second, and then it will be put to a vote. And as long as you have the majority, you can literally have these resolutions read paragraph by paragraph, and you can actually move to amend these paragraphs in the resolution or, strike them out completely. Which could be a really, really key factor to make sure they don't try to sneak some things in there that really have no bearing to be in that resolution in the first place. Now, here's the biggest thing that you need to remember. If your chair, again, you need to look at your bylaws and see what it says in pertaining to amending your paragraphs. Okay, because every county is different, every state could be different, even though they're all similar. So that's extremely important for you to, again, understand your bylaws in your county and your state and how these things are read so you can amend your bylaws first, because this is where people get confused, Indy. They may try to tell you, well, we've amended the bylaws, but the paperwork has not been filed with the state chairman, therefore we're going to proceed as usual. No, this is incorrect. The simple fact is any amendment that you pass is enacted immediately. You do not have to wait for